Good morning, everybody. It is the 28th of October, and today we are going to be talking about groups and collaborations and interesting things like that in Canvas. But first, to start off with, is Canvas Candy, and that's just a little tip that we like to provide at the beginning of a session. Today's Canvas Candy is access reports. So, one of the questions that Sonia and I get is how can I tell what my student's done recently in the class? Usually, this is in relationship with wanting to determine the attendance for reporting. So here's what you do when you want to look for the access report. Of course, go to your course, click on People, choose the student that you want to see what their access is, and then slide over to the right to the little kebab three-dot menu, and then go to User Details. I'm sorry, I haven't shared my screen yet, have I?
No, I was just gonna say, Brian, do you want to share your screen?
Yeah, maybe I'll do that.
Thank you.
All right. Please let me know that you can see my screen.
Yep, I see groups and collaborations.
That is what I am sharing. Turn off my camera so I'm not looking away from you guys. All right, so what we're going to do first is we are going to do our Canvas Candy, and that is how to find the access that your students have done recently. So, of course, you go to your course, and then you go to the People link in the course menu. Choose the student that you want to access their access log or report. Slide over to the right to the three-dot kebab menu. Click on that. Go down to User Details. In User Details, over here in the right is this contextual menu area, and you can see Access Report is the third item down, in my view anyway. You click on that, and it will tell you what access they had to content, what time they viewed it, the times they participated, and their last view. Of course, since this is a fake student in a fake course, they have no access. But that is what it would look like if your student had not accessed the course at all. And that is the Canvas Candy. Just again, choose the student. Well, let's look at me, see if I can see my access report. Click on the kebab menu, go to User Details, click on Access Report. And here you can see what I've done and where I've impersonated students, the times I viewed it, and when I viewed it. That is your Canvas Candy for the day. All right, so to start off with, we are going to be talking today about groups and collaborations. I'm curious, how have you used groups and collaborations in Canvas, or how is it that you're thinking you would like to use groups or collaborations in Canvas? And please, and just turn your microphone on and speak up.
I guess I'll jump in here, start everybody off. I'm using it as a way for learners to actually create their own individual space. So I allow them to create their own group, and if they want to invite other course members, they can. But I've kind of directed them to use it as their own personal space where they can use that page as like a wiki and
Mhm.
create their own study guide or maybe their own reflection, take their own notes as they're moving through the course. And then they can go back and look at that at any point in time that they want to. So I've been using it like that. Um, it seems to be working out okay. Some of the students are taking advantage of it, some of them aren't. So, uh, you know, something new for them for sure.
Yeah, very good. So what I believe I think you might have told me this before. You create an individual group for your students. So you create groups, and every student has their own group that they're a member of, which gives them access to their own course menu, kind of, so to speak, when they're in that group space. They can invite other members using the people view. They can create pages. They can create big blue buttons and things like that if they want to in that group space.
Yes. Yep. And they have the power to, um, invite others if they want to. The thing is set up so I show them how to make it an individual group, how to make it an individual space, or how to invite others. So I show them both ways. So what they do with it is entirely up to them. It's their
Very
space.
good.
They can do what they want to.
All right. So that is really, I would think of that is kind of an andragogical approach to course utilization. Basically, you're saying, hey, you're adults, and here's this tool in our Canvas LMS that you can use as you see fit. The type of learner you are and how you interact with the LMS, or, if you want to, you could do it elsewhere, but it's a tool that's available. Nice. Anybody else have any ideas about how you currently or have used groups or how you would like to use groups or collaborations?
Hi, Brian. It's Jessica. I have not used it yet, but that's why I'm here. So I'm going to learn how to use it.
All right, very good. Anybody else? I'm silently counting in my head up to about 30, making sure there's space if anyone wants to jump in.
For the class that I'm teaching right now, I really don't see how it would fit.
What
Or
class are you teaching right now?
ELT 106.
Okay. So there isn't a lot of need for group work or collaborative work as you currently have that course structured.
Right.
Mhm. Yeah, and in that program, I know just a little bit about it. You have adult learners, many who have full-time jobs. You probably have that course set up to be pretty asynchronous, not a lot of um, synchronous meetings, not a lot of need for the student-to-student interaction. It's largely student-to-content and student-to-instructor types of interactions.
Yeah, it's that course is also part of the Lineman Apprentice program. So
Right.
I have a bulk of my students are actually now dual enrolled. So they're high schoolers. So they're, yeah, group, they have different schedules, all of them, because they're all not from the same high school. They're from all
Mm,
over
mhm,
the state.
okay. Very good. All right. Anybody else?
I was just going to jump in and say that's how my course is set up, that I'm using those individual spaces.
Mhm.
So, it's still giving them the option to use that space if they want to. But my course is totally asynchronous, self-paced, and everybody's an individualized learner as they move through. But if they want to use that space, they have it there. Or they could invite others. But it is, somebody might be starting unit 1 where somebody else is already on unit 6. And so that makes it hard to make it a collaborative type of tool. But if they want to, they can, or if they just want to use the space, it's there for them. Like I said, only a handful of them used it so far, but at least it's there.
Very good. All right. Let's see. I'm going to jump in here and say, okay, so groups and collaborations, let me just give a little bit of background as how I see them. So in most LMSs, there is a grouping function. And the idea of a group in an LMS is similar to how you might think of as groups in face-to-face classes, which is you group several students together around a table and you give them a project or some tasks to work on. From that initial beginning, they may create a group project or they may create individual projects. You can grade the group as a whole or you can grade individual results of that group project. As Kim is setting them up, it's more like giving a workspace or a place to do things. Okay, so just a wild thing. Think of that as like an art studio, and each person has their own area where they control where the tools are set and what tools they use and when they enter that little workspace and so on. It's a way of thinking about that. Collaborations, on the other hand, are different. In Canvas, the collaboration is actually a tool in the menu which gives access to you and students to collaborative technological tools. In our case, we have both Google and Office 365 enabled as those collaborations. And they're just a way of creating shared documents and shared experiences using either the Google ecology or the Microsoft 365 ecology. Of the two, I'm going to be showing the Microsoft 365 because that is the institutionally supported tool. Google works great, but in order for Google to work for your students, each student will have to have a Google account, and they will have to register that Google account through the Canvas LMS in order to use it. Whereas the Office 365 account already exists because they have a JC email, and that account has already been registered in Canvas because we use single sign-on. So when a student signs on to Canvas, they're effectively also making that link with 365, as I understand it. So they're two different things, and groups can use collaborations, but collaborations don't have to be groups. You can think of them as separate, or the groups can use collaborations. What I'd like to show today is some information about using groups and collaborations. And because we as an institution are just beginning our use of Canvas, this will be more of a higher level approach of looking at groups and collaborations rather than a really in-depth kind of thing. But just as a framework, think of groups as group projects, just like in your face-to-face classes. And there are other very imaginative ways to use groups that, as you begin to explore the tool, you might think of, or you might start looking for ways to integrate those kinds of practices using this tool. So the very first thing is I want to make sure that you know where to locate these things in the Canvas LMS. So again, I am still sharing my screen. Looking at my course, in your course menu, you can see that the collaborations is actually in the course menu. And of course, from your experience with Canvas, you can choose to make that available to students, or you can hide it, but it's right there. So if you click on collaborations, you're going to see getting started with collaborations, and then this up here, the plus collaboration. Now you know where to find the Google collaboration and the Microsoft 365 collaboration. It is in the collaborations tool, and then clicking plus, and then you can just choose the one you want. Now, if you prefer Google and you have that Google app, you click on that, you'll say that, look, you need to sign in and authorize that integration, and that is at the individual. So every individual will have to do that. Whereas with the Microsoft 365, you already have that account linked to this, and you have your choice between Word, Excel, and PowerPoint as the three tools that are shared into Canvas for those collaborations. So that's just the very first start. Now let's look at groups. In groups, in order to access groups, there are two ways to do it. You can create a group on the fly as you create an assignment. So when you create an assignment, you can see that this is a group assignment right here. You can click on that, and then you can either use groups that you have created previously, or you can create group sets right here as you create the assignment. Either way seems to work. Of the two, my preference would be not to do it per assignment. It's just the way that I think. It may just be a carryover from my Moodle brain, and this is something that I'll have to continue to explore. But know that you can create a group on the fly as you create an assignment. The other way of creating groups, the one that I prefer, is I think about planning it out and how I might want to set up groups that would be used either for an assignment, that would be a one-time group, or a group that might be used across several assignments, or maybe even for everything for the whole class. So I want to think about that ahead of time. That's why I prefer this method, which is going to people, and then setting up groups and group sets, or actually group sets, then groups. So right now, I don't have any groups in here. No groups at all in this class. When I go to groups, you see that I have two pluses here, two things that I can add. One is a group set and one is people. Well, you may not have the people one because that may just be a carryover from my admin role. Some roles do have the ability to add people. As you explore that, this is something that um, I think has been enabled, which is you as a teacher can now add another teacher or perhaps a visiting faculty so that you can schedule reciprocal observations in your Canvas shell without contacting IT or Sonia or myself um, in order to add a faculty member for that reciprocal visit. So just know that that should be a feature that you now have available to you. If you don't, let me know and I will check with the configurations and see what's going on. But the very first thing that I need to think about is how am I going to use groups and in what way I'm going to configure them. So I'm thinking, okay, I'm going to think of a group that I'm going to use for the entire course. And this is a group that would stay static. It's not for a single assignment. It's like anytime I'm going to have groups, I'm going to group my students in this way. The very first thing I have to do is I have to create a group set. One of the things that Canvas recommends is that when you create group sets, you name the group accordingly so that it is identifiable out of the context of the class. So you would say this is the name of the class, and this class is empty class. And then you name the group after that. So this is discussions. All right. Then you can configure how the group is set up. You can allow self sign up, meaning that the student can choose that group. In this case, I don't want that. I'm actually going to create my groups as I want to. So I'm going to create my groups later and hit save. So now you see I have a group set, which is my discussion group. But there are no groups in this, right? So here's my discussion, my group set, empty class discussions, but there are no groups in here. I can't drag a student into a group set because the group set is the container for all the groups in my class, in my discussion group class. So now what I want to do is I want to add a group. So now I'm going to add this group. And again, I'm going to name it empty class discussion group 1. Not a very imaginative name, but that's what I'm going to do. I've now created that. I'm also going to create another group, which is empty class. All right, my class name is pretty poor. Discussions group 2. And then save. All right, so now I have two groups within my group set. Right now, there are no students in either. So now I'm going to populate them with my students. I'm just going to put 2 in each. And there is my group set. And that is set. That's all I have to do here. Now, when I go back into something like my, my course assignments, and I create an assignment, and I tell it that I want this to be a group assignment, I can select a group category, empty class discussions, and now those groups are in this assignment as groups rather than as individuals. Any questions about that so far? Again, I'm counting silently to myself to make sure I'm leaving plenty of space. All right, so now that you've set up your groups, you can access them anytime you want to here in people, go to the group set, and go to the group. Now you notice that there's a kebab menu for each group, and anytime you see that three-dot menu, you know that there's something there that might be useful. So here I want you to know about. Of course, you can edit it and delete it, but the one that is different from Moodle, so stop thinking Moodle brain, start thinking Canvas brain, is visit group homepage. Every group, and this is how Kim uses it individually, so every student in her class has this workspace that they can access and use. And you can see that the menu is a little bit different than maybe your course menu is. This is the group menu configuration. You can see that now every group has this, and every member of the group has access to things that they might want to do. For example, if a member of the group says, hey, let's meet on Big Blue Button, the student can initiate a Big Blue Button session without you having to set it up for them in your main course. This is a Big Blue session, Big Blue Button session, which is existing in this group space, which is separate than your Big Blue Button in your course space. Notice that collaborations is here so that your students working in a group can go to collaborations, share documents. This is how you might have them create a collaboratively developed project in a spreadsheet or word processor, etc., and so on. They have a discussion area. They have the people area, and this is where they could see who all is in this group and so on, like that. And they have pages available to them. Again, you could use pages as a place for them to collaborate and work together on a shared document and a shared page. They also have an announcement and then home. Now, as a teacher, I can switch groups right here. So I can go to in between group 1 and group 2 right here in this menu. Right. So getting out of this, I can go back to my empty course. And now I'm in my course space. So you can see that as the course space. So the difference between the group space and the course space. I have all of these things in the available. Any question about that? All right, so another area that groups are commonly used in addition to just an assignment where you assign them a project, something to do, would be as a discussion. So you can create a discussion that is a group discussion. This is a group discussion. And then you can assign your group that you or your groups through your groups category, or you can create new group categories right here in there. So in this way, you can create a discussion that has more than one group working on it. And in fact, I set up the weekly register here discussion as a group discussion this week so we can play with that. We didn't have a whole lot of people, but we can look at this. So right now, this is the root discussion that Sonia and I talked to each other in before I set up groups. Here is the link for the groups. Click on that and you can see I've got 3 groups. So let's look at group 1. And in group 1, Kim, you were in group 1. You had this, and then we had some responses. Group 2, only I was in there. And then group 3, we had Nicole and myself. So you can see that when you do a group discussion, as a teacher, you have to remember you have to check up here in order to see all of your students' groups, therefore seeing their student thing. If you don't do that, if you just go to your register here discussion, then you may not see any student posts here, and you may be wondering why. Well, the reason is you have to go here in order to access the groups. Any questions about that? All right. So one thing that I've noticed, which is a little weird, is once you get into a group space, you stay there until you exit it. So right now I'm in group space. I have to click on my course in order to get back to the course itself. So that is something to keep in mind. All right, so let me go back to my dashboard and into my empty class. All right, the next thing to look at are collaborations. Oh, you know what? I should do this here because I set up a collaboration in our repository, and that's right here. You can see collaboration. I set it up as an assignment. You can also access this here, but I wanted to show you that you can set up a collaboration as an assignment. And I have to go here. I always forget that. I have to actually enter it to click on edit. So in this, all I did was I created an assignment in the rich text editor. I used the link tool to link to a course link, and then I linked to a no, not a course link, yeah, it was a course link, and it was the navigation and collaborations. So I was able to access the collaborations by clicking on the link or by setting up a link. So I said, don't forget to go to the collaboration test document. And that doesn't link us directly to the document, it links us to the collaboration menu. So clicking here is the same thing as clicking here. But you can do that very easily. So then you can wrap the link to collaborations with any assignments that you have for the task. So you click there and you go to the collaboratory. You click on that and that opens up, I chose a Word document for this. It opens up a Word document, and those of you who are in this course can now access this Word document and you can read through it. You should also be able to edit the document, print, share, and all of those kinds of things. So that is the collaboration. So let me show you how to set that up in the collaboration. So you just go to collaborations, you add a collaboration. Again, I'm going to demonstrate Microsoft 365. And this time I'm going to choose a PowerPoint because let's say that I want my groups to collaborate on a PowerPoint, or I want to create an assignment that has everyone collaborating on a PowerPoint. So this is and then I can give it a description, and then I can add collaborators. So I can choose groups. So again, you can use collaborations in groups. I can assign that, or you can do individual people. Now, in this case, this class, our repository includes every faculty member. So there's hundreds. So that it's a little bit cumbersome to go through this. But let's just say I wanted to have Diana Agee in this along with these students. I can assign this collaboration to just them. One thing that I have not yet found that it seems like I would want to do, maybe, I don't know, I hadn't thought about that. Maybe if I don't add any collaborators, maybe that does give it access to all students. I haven't tested that. But when I look at an interface, it kind of gives me the clue that I have to add collaborators in order to make this work. I don't get the sense, like in Moodle, how there was something that was a little unintuitive. It was that how many is the maximum number of users, and if you left it at 0, that meant no maximum. This is a little non-intuitive to me. I'm not sure if everyone now has access to this collaboration because I haven't restricted it by putting people in, or if that is so. I'm going to test that out. I'm going to say I'm not going to add collaborators, and now I'm going to go into people. And I'm going to impersonate just the first person on the list. And this is something as an administrator I have access to. I can impersonate users.
I wish we could.
I know, but you can't.
Come
Right.
on now.
I have to have some secret powers that make the job fun. All right, so now let me go to collaborations and see if I can see it. Nope, see, I only see the collaboratory. So as the interface seemed to lead me to believe I have to add collaborators. So if you're wanting to put your whole group in the collaboration, you actually have to add them all, or create a group called total class, add everyone to that, and then use that group in order to add that to there. All right,
So if
stop acting as user.
Brian,
I
hang on a
have to
second.
say, back to the impersonating users, that the student view in Canvas is a little bit better in my mind than the view a student in Moodle in some ways. So I think that that's a slight improvement over what was available to us before. One of the few things I found that Canvas might actually have a edge on Moodle about. All right, any questions so far?
I have a question.
Yes.
It's more of a like a use. If you log back in as that student, I see they could add collaborations. So who would be involved? Can they pick and choose who they
So
add?
if I'm acting as a student, like here, student view.
Y- Or like you were in there as you were logged in as that student,
Okay,
and
so I'm
then
impersonating a student.
yes, I'm sorry.
All right, so let me go back and do that. Let's see.
So up
People. Impersonate. So if I go to collaborations, interesting. And this is not inside a group area. So so here I hit this. I don't know if that's because I'm obviously not logged in single sign-on with that student. So therefore, my Office 365 account for that student isn't linked to Canvas. That's what I think is happening here. But it looks like,
Interesting.
yes, it looks like the student would be able to create a collaboration.
I think they can create a big blue button from that main, if it's on the main page there,
Maybe
it
so.
looks like.
So go into our repository and try it out, because you should be in the student role in the repository, and that would allow you to test that for yourself and let me know. Anything else?
I can add collaborators, it looks like.
Okay,
I can choose Word, Excel, PowerPoint. I can
right.
make the name, description, all that stuff. I can choose groups, or I can choose
So
people.
as a student, that's interesting.
But that's cool.
Yeah. Yeah, see, that's something, since I don't view things as teacher role or student role, what I see, I often think, oh, that's just because I have that admin, which kind of overrides all of the roles, or it gives me the power of all of the roles. So that is interesting. So even if you don't create a group, maybe that would happen. I'm curious about that. So when you do that, Kim, you're not seeing it as part of the group that you're in. You're not seeing your group page. You're actually seeing this is, oh, did you create that collaboration? Let me go to it. Let me see if I see it.
I did not create it yet. I'm at the page where I added the
Yeah.
collaboration, and then I
Go
have
ahead and
all those
create it, and let's see
options.
if I can see it and see if the other students can see it.
Who do you want me to add?
So add Kathy Fitzgerald, Thomas Beatty, and Ebony Watson, since they're here, and we can see.
Well, there's a lot of people in here. Let me go
Yeah,
to
there are,
this. There's no search. There's no
and
quick
that is,
search.
if you had to pick one thing that I could change about Canvas, it would be bring back the user search like Moodle has for everything, where you can just start typing the name and it will give
Yeah.
you the options. I miss that a lot, many times per day. But just pick some random ones and go ahead and set that. That way I'll be able to see it as the teacher, I'm sure.
So I've added Thomas and Anthony Cleveland. Let's see here. Save. So there should be a Kim's collab there.
There it is. So I can edit it as the teacher. I can delete it also. I can see your people in there. Very good.
Cool.
All right. So that is a tool that seems to be built in for the student role right from the get-go. No need to even create a group if you just want students to be able to collaborate using either the Google tools or the Microsoft 365 tools that are included here. Nice.
And then you as a teacher can see what's in that document, right? So I'm just thinking of where students may misuse the tool like this. Like, let's just put the test
Wouldn't
questions on here and
happen.
let's just share them, you know? So,
Yeah.
so yeah.
So if I click on your collab, it's loading. So yeah, as the teacher, you'll be able to see it. That is a good thing to think about. All right, there we go. All right, so we've gone through creating groups, creating collaborations. In groups, we talked about group sets and adding students to groups, and same thing in collaborations. We've shown, or we've looked at how to either add a group to a collaboration or how to put individual students in groups. And then we've talked about grading collaborations by creating an assignment that incorporates a collaboration so they produce something, and we can control that from the discussion space or the assignment space and so on. That covers the kind of what I would consider to be the introduction to groups and collaboration in Canvas. We've talked mostly about the mechanics of it, how you make those happen. And now it's time for you as teachers to start thinking, how is it that these tools could help me in my job of reaching my students and teaching them and getting them to perform? So let's talk a little bit about how some use cases. How could collaborations and groups or groups with collaborations work in the context of classes? So I can think of classes that I've taught before where I had group projects. So one class that I taught, which was kind of an interesting class, was a STEM class, and it was about design. It was a STEM design class. And in that class, the project that every student had to participate in was a group project. They had to create an engineering product of some type. So I allowed them to choose their group by either the project ideas that they were talking about, or in a lot of cases, it was a convenience group. It was a group of people who worked at the same school. They were a group of teachers. And so that way they could work together, in their breaks and after school and so on, because they were already physically together. So if I were using Canvas in that case, I would do a lot like Kim is talking about, and that is individual students could have their own group space that they could invite people to. So I could say, hey, just use your group space to coordinate your group. That's one way I could do that. Or I could, in a face-to-face class, right? Because it was kind of a hybrid class, but in the face-to-face portion, I can get them to form their groups and say, okay, now every group, you have to elect a leader or representative who contacts me and tells me who's in the group. Then I would in Canvas set up group spaces for each of those. So I would create, STEM design, that's the name of the class. And then it would be the project, which is engineering product. And then it would be group 1, group 2, group 3, group 4, group 5, and so on. And I would assign those members as I'm communicated by the group leader to each of those groups, and then they would have their group space to communicate. Then in the group space, my assignment would be, you have to do 2 things in this group shared space that I can monitor. Number 1, you have to have a design document, and that design document was one of the assignments in here. It basically specified how they are going to create their product. They have to identify what that product is. They have to create specifications for that product. Then they have a team lists and have assignments and things like that. So a design document that allows me to track their progress. And then they have to have a PowerPoint, a presentation, which presents their design idea to the larger group before they begin building it. And that way we can have some interaction in the whole group with a collaboratively designed PowerPoint by the group about their design and what they intend to do. And that way we can point out problems, and I can say, no, that is too hard. It was really interesting. Sorry, this is a bunny trail, but one of the groups said, we're going to make a hovercraft. And I said, that's too hard. And they said, no, we can do it. We can do it. And I went back and forth with them several times because most of the projects were like tabletop projects, things that I thought you could bring in and demonstrate. But no, they said, we're going to create a hovercraft, and it is going to be able to hold a human being and move that human being around in the building. So they did it, and they actually achieved it. It was a very loud thing because they used a leaf blower, a gas powered leaf blower as the engine. They designed a platform and a skirt. The leaf blower. It was actually pretty amazing, but having that opportunity to challenge a group to make sure that what they're intending to do is achievable is an important part of that kind of group project. And this would allow us to do it by having that cooperatively produced PowerPoint where they share to the group in an online session or in a face-to-face session what they plan to do and how they plan to do it. So that's an idea of how I might have used group spaces in Canvas had I been using Canvas at the time when I was teaching that class. Any ideas from you guys? Or any questions? Like, do you have something that you think might be a group project that you want to run by us and get some comments or thoughts on? I guess I can stop sharing my screen and start sharing my camera. Kathy, did you get any ideas of how you might use groups in your class?
Yeah, it gives me some ideas. I think I'm more designed toward the for group projects.
Mhm.
I'm still torn. Usually I use the discussion board so I can kind of control a little bit on where the discussion goes. But I can see where group projects I could return back to the group project concept.
So in Canvas, when you create a group, every group has a discussion forum available to them. So you could still use the discussion tool, but instead of having it be a discussion tool in your whole class, you could have it be discussions in the groups. On the other hand, if you like discussions in your whole class, you can do like I did with our discussion this week in our repository. You can make your discussion a group discussion so that you're still using a familiar tool, which is a good idea, and then you can access it right from your course page rather than having to go to people and then look at each group. Great. Thomas or Ebony, do you have any ideas of how you might use groups or collaborations or groups and collaborations? Or
Yeah,
any
I
questions?
could see this maybe interfacing with Student Success Center to
Hmm.
facilitate bringing like tutors into the class if there's a
Absolutely. In
role.
fact, I just met with them yesterday about how to do that. We were, as you probably remember, we had a class set up in Moodle for them. We did the same thing. And because of some upgrades to Big Blue Button and this group being processed, each of the what are they? The student instructors, SIs, or tutors can now invite students to there. You could do the same kind of thing. You could have your group, each individual student could then invite someone that way, or yeah, it could be used in that kind of way to bring in tutors into your groups or into individuals or for individuals.
Hmm, that could be interesting.
Anything else? All right. Not hearing anything, I'm going to go ahead and say that concludes our exploration of groups and collaborations in Canvas. And again, this was at really the tool level, how to make these happen. But we haven't really gotten a lot into why you would make them happen or the exact examples of how you can do that. We can continue to have those kinds of discussions later down the line. I encourage you to use these tools and try them out, explore them, learn their pluses and minuses, figure out what they work well for and what they don't work for, what they help you do and what makes your job a little more difficult, because we don't want to do that. We want to increase student success without making the teacher job so hard that you no longer want to teach for us anymore. So be thinking about that. As always, Sonia and I would be happy to answer any questions about this. And with that, I'm going to end the recording.